As most of you are probably aware, pretty much all hell broke loose over the weekend at the various Trump rallies. Chicago was kind of bad, but Kansas City might have been worse. I'm going to show you a couple of clips regarding the violence that took place.
Violent protests and Trump rallies. And our CBS Battleground Tracker poll shows movement in key primary states. Protests at Trump rallies this weekend in Chicago, Dayton, and Kansas City last night marked a shocking escalation in the angry political tone in America.
Now, basically, if you saw that section from Kansas City, the police were actually using pepper spray on the protesters, which reminds me of what went down in '68 in Chicago, where 4 people were killed. And Donald Trump's going to get on and do an interview here, and he's basically going to blame everybody else. Now, all 3 of the actually all 4 of the GOP candidates are claiming that these protesters are paid, but I think that's a bunch of bullshit. And the interview that one of the reporters, who was actually taken down by police and arrested, his commentary basically indicates that. Now I'm going to jump to the Donald Trump interview that's done, just so that you can get a flavor of what he's talking about.
Last night in Kansas City, another round of chaos in the streets. We begin with Donald Trump, who is in Chicago this morning. Mr. Trump, you've said that you don't incite any of this activity, but at several of your rallies, you've said that protesters, you said about one, I'd like to punch him in the face. Another, you suggested that it would be better if he was taken out on a stretcher. You suggested if one thought about throwing a tomato that your supporters should knock the crap out of them. So how is that not encouraging the kind of behavior we're now seeing?
Well, let me just tell you, first of all, with all of the rallies I've had, and I get more people than anybody by, as you know, by a lot. Thousands and thousands of people, 25,000 people is almost getting standard. You haven't seen one person even injured at one of our rallies. Okay,
now that's a lie, because we all saw that protester get cold cocked by one of Trump's supporters. So, you know, that's basically lie number 1.
And the cases you're talking about, the one guy was a bad dude. He was swinging, he was hitting.
Now that's a lie, because none of the protesters that were taken out, there is no footage, nobody claiming that there was any swinging being done by the protesters, and it's just Donald Trump lying, so that's lie number 2.
He was a very bad guy, and the police came in and they really were very effective, and frankly some of the audience members had no choice but to be effective, and I didn't mind that at all, or they would have been hurt, frankly. The other one with the tomatoes, I was told by the Secret Service that there are 2 people in the audience we've heard that have tomatoes, and they're going to throw them at you. They have good arms that can do some damage, okay?
Okay, so now how does he know the people who have the tomatoes? And if the Secret Service knows about the people with the tomatoes, it would have been a very simple matter for them to eject those 2 people, or at least take the tomatoes away from them. So that's another lie. That's lie number 3.
And I said to the people before my speech started, if you see anybody with tomatoes, you got to take them out, folks. You got to take them out. And I think everybody understands that.
You say no one was hurt, but there was a gentleman who's walking out. The video shows him being escorted out, and then a supporter cold-cocked him. He was hurt, so there was somebody hurt, and he wasn't doing any damage when he was walking out. He was cold-cocked. You had suggested in one of your rallies that you would pay for the legal fees. Will you pay for the legal fees for that gentleman?
Well, I'm going to review it, and
Okay, and there's the famous, I'm going to review it because I don't really know anything about it. That's bullshit. This has been playing wire to wire, that particular clip. Has been playing wire to wire ever since it went down. It occurred on Thursday. It's been playing Friday, ever since. So for him to say he's going to review it, that's code for I'm not going to review it, and you guys probably won't ask me about it again, so I won't have to say anything else.
Understand, and I don't condone violence, and I don't condone what happened to him and what he did, because he got carried away, and it's very unfortunate. But this kid was walking out, and I understand he had a certain finger up in the air as he's...
Right, and he had a finger up in the air because you told him to go back to his mommy, and his mother was dead, so he was basically telling you to go fuck yourself. But that still is no excuse for somebody to lay hands on, but of course, you don't care about that.
Walking out, and this man became very angry. And you know what? Again, I don't condone violence, but the kid shouldn't have had the finger up in the air either, okay? If that's what he did. So I'm going to take a look at the tape, and I'll let you know.
Bullshit.
So is that the threshold? Is just the wrong gesture and it's okay to clock him?
Well, I think that's a terrible gesture, if you want to know the truth. I mean, we can say, oh, it doesn't matter, but I think it's a terrible gesture. And you know, it's interesting.
Notice, he didn't answer the question.
These people are disruptors. They're not protesters, they're disruptors. They're professional disruptors in some cases, but that's all they do. They stand up and they disrupt. And if somebody did that at a Bernie rally, many of these people come from Bernie. And you know, I have tremendous young people also. We have a whole level of young people. I can't even believe it, how young my audience is. But if they ever went to Bernie's rallies and did the same thing, I want to tell you, you would be so angry with me. Nobody talks about it, but you would be so against me. It's a whole different standard when it comes to a Republican conservative versus a liberal. If people went to their rallies and disrupted their rallies like my rallies are disrupted, the press would stick up for them and would make all sorts of excuses about how terrible it is. So, you know.
Now that's a bunch of bullshit, because Bernie had one of his rallies canceled, and it was canceled by, I believe it was Black Lives Matter advocates. And Fox News was all over it like they normally are. Fox News, anytime there's a Black Lives Matter story, they can't wait to get their cameras out there and get a negative story out there. So again, you know, he's full of shit.
We have two standards in this country. It's very unfortunate. The press is extremely dishonest.
When you talk about these protesters, you said these are bad, bad people. We're going to take our country back from these people. These people do nothing. Who are these people in that case?
Well, I see people in the audience that I don't think they have a great future. I think they're disruptors. I think they are not in love with our country. I think they protest and they disrupt. That's what they do. I don't know if they do it for a living. I don't know if they get paid for doing it. But they are not good people, and they are certainly not good for our country. And the people that come to my rallies, these are extraordinary people. These are great people. These are people that are really disenfranchised in many cases. Now, with that being said, we have very successful people. We have the smartest. We have the best educated. We have people that aren't educated as well. You know, if you look at the polls coming out of all the...
And there's Donald Trump going into his hyperbole regarding the biggest and the best, and all his people are great and everybody else sucks, which is bullshit. Most of the protesters that are showing up at his rallies are a tremendous mixture of various races, religions, etc. But according to Trump, they're all losers.
States that I've won, which is most of them. If you look at the polls coming out, I lead with Hispanics, I lead with women.
Please with the Hispanics already. He had, in Nevada, he got 750 Hispanic votes, okay, because the Hispanics basically weren't voting in the Republican caucuses. So his 750 Hispanic votes is such a small number of people, he should be ashamed to even announce that.
I lead with, you know, very well educated. I lead in all different categories.
He doesn't lead with very well educated people. He leads with people that are barely educated. The very well educated people gravitate across the board to Rubio, Cruz, and to Kasich.
Very proudly, I lead with evangelicals. I lead with veterans. I lead in every category. So I have everybody there, but we really do have a young crowd. And remember this, if they went to a Hillary rally, although nobody cares too much about the Hillary rallies because there's absolutely no fervor there, But if they went to a Bernie rally, everybody would say, oh, what a terrible thing. They disrupt me from talking, and I do the best I can with it. And by the way, and you've heard me say it, don't hurt them. And I'm constantly saying to the police, don't hurt them, don't hurt them.
And you're also constantly saying, I wish I could punch him in the face. Somebody should punch him in the face. If somebody punches him in the face, I'll pay their legal fees. So what are you doing? Sending a mixed message? Telling the cops not to hurt him, but telling your crowd to hurt them?
I condone violence, but some of these people are violent.
Let me ask you a policy question. At the debate, you talked about H-1B visas. You said, it's something I frankly use and I shouldn't be allowed to use it. When you've talked about the bankruptcy laws, you've talked about how you took advantage of them. When you and I talked about your taxes, you say you try and pay as little as possible. If you're president, why would anybody follow the laws that you put in place if they knew you were taking advantage of those laws when you were in the private sector?
Okay. There's a certain thing called morality. Morality is doing the right thing. Now, what Donald Trump is going to say is everything he did was legal, but was it moral? He himself is saying that he was doing immoral things, but that they were legal, so he was just going to do them. So, translation, Donald Trump is immoral.
Because I know the game better than anybody, because I've been on the other side. I built one of the greatest companies. I did a filing which shows one of the great companies, great assets, very little debt, tremendous cash flow, some of the greatest assets in the world. But let me just tell you, I use the bankruptcy laws just like other very successful people. I don't want to use their names, but I could name 10 people right now, the biggest people in all of business. We do it. It's the game we play. We use the laws of the land.
But why?
And that's called immorality. There's a reason for filing bankruptcy, okay? And then, actually, I take that back. There are several reasons to file bankruptcy. One of them is because you have no choice, and another reason is to take advantage of the financial condition of a company in order to net out more money from the sale of assets versus trying to restructure the company in order for it to survive. Trump is a master of splitting up and cashing out on assets when he files bankruptcy. I believe he's filed like 4 of them, and he's netted out to the positive every time he's filed a bankruptcy.
That's the way we play the game. Wait a minute, as far as the visas are concerned, I'm not doing anything wrong. I think those visas shouldn't be allowed, but they are allowed. They're part of the fact of what you do. So I'll use it. I mean, I'm a businessman. Now that I've turned politician, I hate to say that almost about myself, but now that I'm running for office, I know the game better than anybody. I'm the one that can fix all of this stuff. But when you start talking...
So you're saying as a businessman you were immoral, but now that you're a politician, you're going to become moral? No, I don't think so. And all of your actions thus far basically are demonstrating the fact that you are immoral.
I never went bankrupt. I never went bankrupt. You understand I never went bankrupt. But you take a look at the business leaders, every once in a while. I have 500 companies. I have so many different companies. And a very few I will take advantage of, frankly, by using the laws of the land, as every other major business person does.
But that's what I want to ask about the playing of the game. Because when you were with Ben Carson, who endorsed you this week, I mean, you said he was pathological, and then both of you said, well, oh, that was just politics. So you're saying it's just the game. But if the most serious things you say about a person are just politics, it's just the game, then why isn't everything you're saying just a game and just politics and totally open to revision?
Exactly.
Well, that is politics. I mean, I say bad things about people.
And he just admitted it.
Things about me, and actually Ben wrote it in his book. I just read sections of his book. I read what Ben wrote. I'm not going to make up anything. I mean, I could tell you about John Kasich. He's done a terrible job in Ohio, and people think he's done a good job. He's losing his businesses. Real estate taxes have gone through the roof. He talks about not raising taxes. The real estate taxes in Ohio have gone through the roof. He approved NAFTA. He voted for NAFTA, which has destroyed Ohio, and now he's voting for TPP, which is going to be worse than NAFTA. They're going to take all the car industry, everything else out. His coal industry is dead, and his steel industry is dead. And, you know, I mean, give me a break. And you tell me about how good he's doing. He's doing a terrible job for Ohio.
Okay, we're out of time, Mr. Trump. Thanks so much.
So just to recap, Donald Trump's immoral. He takes no responsibility. He does incite his supporters to violence, and he basically just doesn't give a shit. So I'm wondering how he's going to make it. But then again, there's a large contingency in this country that feels the same way that he does, that supports him. So I'm just hoping that this gets to the Republican convention and he doesn't have enough delegates in order to claim the position outright, and that they attempt to pick somebody else and that all hell breaks loose.